Bigfoot Classified contains content that is graphic in nature, and listener discretion is advised. Bigfoot Classified relies largely on news documents, eyewitness accounts, press conferences, and interviews. Every episode is produced with respect to the victims, families, and communities involved. Some of the interviews, quotes, and broadcasts have been recreated. Numerous hours of research have been done regarding these stories. And if you have a theory, question, or feel that we've missed something, we encourage you to visit BigfootClassified.com. Bigfoot, also commonly referred to as Sasquatch, is a purported ape-like creature said to inhabit the forests of North America. This is Bigfoot Classified.
In parts 1 and 2, we walked you through the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens and the events that followed. Many witness reports claimed that they had seen Bigfoot, alive and dead, after the disaster. Even military personnel. But everybody was told not to speak about what they saw, or if civilians asked about what was going on, they only got very vague answers from the government officials. But if the government really tried to cover up the existence of Bigfoot, why would they do that? And in this episode, we're going to try to answer that question. What happened on Mount St. Helens in 1980 is definitely not the only example of the government allegedly trying to hide the existence of Bigfoot. Before we go into the reasons why they might be doing so, let's talk a little about the incident that took place in 1999. That year, on August 5th, Battle Mountain in Nevada exploded into several simultaneous range fires, in what would be known as the Battle Mountain Complex Fire. The town of Battle Mountain is surrounded by boundless scenery and soaring mountain ranges. It's perched along a stretch of Interstate 80, and the area is known for its endless possibilities for different outdoor activities, including hiking, biking, off-roading, fishing, and hunting trips. But at the end of the summer of 1999, those activities were put on a halt for a moment when lightning sparked fires burned an estimated 300 square miles of rangeland. According to a government employee who has remained anonymous, a Bigfoot was hurt in the fire. Apparently, he alerted the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, the BFRO, of the situation. The employee's experience was later dismissed, but to this day, many believe it really happened. Here's what the anonymous government employee wrote about the incident in a letter to the BFRO.
I observed an animal wounded by fire moving on all fours, not like a bear, more like an ape. Firefighters captured animal, contacted local vet and medical doctor, U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Interior, and Bureau of Land Management on the scene. Animal tranquilized and moved to an unknown location. Those at scene told not to talk about what they saw. Animal approximately 7.5 feet long/tall. Human-like arms and legs. Face not like man or ape, but mixed between. Genitalia, male, uncircumcised, and human-like. Hair covering most of body except chest. Chest has hair but sparse. Hands with sparse hair. Palms bare. With 5 digits with human opposition of thumb and 5th digit. Speech. Attempted to communicate with caregivers once it realized they were attempting to care for it. Multiple burns on hands, feet, legs, and body. Some 2nd and 3rd degree burns. Using rule of nines, approximately 45% of body with burns. Doctor and vet working together providing care and moved it to an unknown location locally. This notice given in violation of orders given by BLM, DOI, and DF&W. Witnesses numbered in the area of 25 to 30. Word is out in the government agencies and among the firefighters since an MD was called out. Many thought a firefighter was injured. Please note that I am a government employee of one of the listed agencies fighting brush fire in wilderness area of Nevada. Large-scale fire, approximately 70,000 acres burned, and under orders not to disclose information. I believe a cover-up is in the making. People need to know. The animal needs to be kept alive and studied and released in a protected area.
After receiving the letter, BFRO tried to reach the witness several times without success. However, 10 days after the initial report, the witness contacted the BFRO investigator by phone. The two talked for about 70 minutes, during which the investigator learned the witness, let's call him John, was a full-time worker for a federal agency with extensive EMT training and experience. According to John, around 20 people were in the immediate vicinity of the incident. During the debrief, all were informed of what happened during the fire and was not meant to be discussed. For that reason, John was extremely concerned about losing his job talking about his experience. But he felt that what he saw that day needed to be made public. During the call, the investigator and John agreed that they would use the term patient instead of Bigfoot or Sasquatch. John said that the incident took place in the early afternoon when the injured patient wandered within sight of the firefighters. The patient was quickly surrounded, and it seemed to know that he was captured because it did not fight back. John said many times that the patient simply gave up. The patient was laid on the ground, and it became evident it was seriously injured. There were burns on its hands, feet, legs, and trunk. Soon, a medical team arrived at the scene, including an MD, a vet, and some more paramedics. Apparently, the vet was hesitant to work on the patient. The creature was so human-like that he allowed the physician to do most of the work. The patient was given some pain medication before it was placed on a spine board, which was way too small, so the creature was moved to a regular ambulance stretcher. Still, the patient's feet and arms hung off the end and sides. John stated that the creature communicated with moans, groans, and grumbling, nothing language-like. It also responded to touch, and strokes seemed to calm it down. The patient was transported from the scene to the back of the utility truck, which this is already evidence that they were trying to hide what was going on. An ambulance would have alerted people living in the area and possibly even news reporters. No one knows where the patient was taken. John described the patient as about 7 feet tall, most of its body covered by brownish hair, about 2 inches in length. The creature had a natural odor, but John had a hard time putting in words what it actually smelled like, kind of like a strong equine odor. The patient's head was 2 times the size of a human head, and its hands 1.5 times bigger than ours. John also said that his observations did not match with, quote, that film with the one running into the woods, end quote. He mentioned more than once that he felt like he was in the presence of a human creature, not a monkey or ape. John's story definitely was high in detail, but still, the Bigfoot investigator had his doubts, especially because when John was asked to return to the scene to collect physical evidence, hair or blood, he said that a dozer had torn up the area. To some, that seemed just a little bit too convenient. However, science teacher Tom Powell really felt they were onto something here. He said, "It is my feeling that this person, John, was not lying, and this set of described events really happened. There is simply too much precise detail and a complete absence of error or contradiction." Nevertheless, the incident was never posted for public inspection at the BFRO website, as it was seen as a probable hoax. 3 years later, Tom sent John an email, and to his surprise, he got an answer less than 24 hours later. John wrote,
Tom, I had almost forgotten about the event until now. I have not spoken due to the classification that was put on it. The patient was taken to a university or some hospital that was not disclosed. As for verification, well, other than my contact with you, I know of no one other than those there on the scene. An affidavit was signed under Department of Interior and U.S. Forest Service as 1. Confidential under penalty of felony arrest and jail time. 2. Immediate loss of government service rank, loss of retirement and benefits. Several meetings were held in reference to him. I do respect his rights of life and will always be a believer of their existence beyond any shadow of a doubt, as seen with my own eyes, smelled with my own nose, and heard with my own ears. His image is still visible as it was then. No monster, no animal, but a lineage of native man. His trust in us to take care of him and recognize him that harm was not meant when contact was made, knowing that care would be given to him. I am sure that the Department of Interior knows where he may have been released. What more can I say? Specifics? Features? Anatomy? Well, stand in front of the mirror and think of man's evolution.
Tom was left with one conclusion. First, Bigfoots do exist. And second, the government does not want us to know it. The big question that remains is why? Tom was able to come up with many possible reasons for all this secrecy. The exact same reasons why the government might have covered up what happened at Mount St. Helens. One reason why our government might be hiding things from us is that the decision makers think the general public is not ready to accept the truth. They believe it is simply better for us not to know that Bigfoot-style creatures exist. The same thing could easily happen, or is happening already, if the government would learn there actually is life somewhere else in the universe. Another thing is the fact that 85% of the world's people identify with a religion. And some of those religions believe we humans are the superior species and sole heirs to the planet. So if it was proved that we actually have been living alongside another human-like species all this time, it could cause chaos. So the government is acting like our parent and hiding things from us that they think could disturb our worldview too much. Of course, it is also possible that the government is simply as confused as we are. We're supposed to trust government entities as our protectors. So what would happen if they let us know that creatures that they do not fully understand exist in our world? We would have questions, and the government might not have the answers. Keeping something secret means you will never have to explain it. Like one commenter said on a Bigfoot forum, "Who knows what's going on with the government?" Certainly, that was highly unusual. It seems that the government hushes up the highly unusuals until such time that they can figure out what is going on. That seems pretty plausible to me. It's what happens after that I don't understand. Maybe they just let the incident and the memory of it die away to keep people from stirring up things that just aren't worth the time and money it would take to deal with it. I don't know. If Bigfoot really exists in our forest, and the government would officially acknowledge that, it would possibly mean the end of logging and mining operations in areas that qualify as Sasquatch habitat. While there's no way of knowing if Bigfoot is actually an endangered species, we can be sure that they would be environmentalists who would do anything to protect them. It could mean loss of jobs, and the biggest motivation, money. The same argument applies to tourism. If people would suddenly learn that forests and national parks and other popular camping sites are proven to be home to Bigfoot, it could dramatically drop the number of visitors. We're used to going out in the wilderness knowing there might be bears, moose, and other wild and potentially dangerous animals. We don't have an issue with something familiar to us. But for many people, knowing that a human-like creature might be roaming the woods can be a big no-no. And fewer tourists means less money. Of course, the Bigfoot habitats could be protected and tourists could not go camping there anyway. But the result is still the same. Another theory, called Missing 411, includes tourism and overall camping activities in a much darker way than other reasons why the truth of Bigfoot might be kept secret. Since the National Park Service was established in 1916, more than 1,000 visitors have disappeared while visiting a park, often without a trace. This happens so often and in such strange circumstances that it inspired former police detective David Paulides to write a book called Missing 411. After leaving the police force, David became a cryptozoologist and published books arguing the existence of Bigfoot. While researching national parks, he heard about missing persons cold cases from a local ranger, and when David began investigating the cases, he made a disturbing discovery. While many of the disappearances could be explained with an easy answer, death by falling, animal attack, or exposure to the elements, some of the people seemed to have vanished into thin air. In many of the cases, someone had been with these people, looked away for a second, and when they turned back, the person was gone. Some people were eventually located, but in places that did not make any sense. For example, a missing 2-year-old was found 12 miles away from where he went missing. To get there, the toddler would have needed to traverse 2 mountain ranges and cross over fences and through creeks. Similar mysterious circumstances and other disappearances led some to speculate that maybe Bigfoot was abducting these people, and if that was true and confirmed by the government, that would cause some panic amongst the general public. Another theory is that the government is well aware of Bigfoot's existence, but they hide it from the general public because the creatures are used for national defense one way or another. Perhaps Bigfoot has features and abilities that humans don't, that our military wants to utilize, and in that case, possible enemies could not know what is going on, which also means that our own citizens couldn't know either. And if Bigfoot really does exist, we can be sure the government will be doing all kinds of tests on him, and these genetic experiments could be alarming to the general public. Having so many human-like features, it is possible that Bigfoots are descendants of the Homo erectus or Neanderthal lineage. And if that wasn't the case, the species would still offer an endless amount of possibilities for genetic research and even crossbreeding. How ethical these kinds of experiments would be is a big question, and one reason why the government might want to hide them from us. In fact, in 2013, Texas veterinarian Melba Ketchum alleged she and her team had studied Bigfoot DNA and confirmed that the creature is a human relative that arose some 15,000 years ago. Their press release read, "A team of scientists can verify that their 5-year-long DNA study, currently under peer review, confirms the existence of a novel hominid hybrid species commonly called Bigfoot or Sasquatch, living in North America." This might sound exciting, right? But unfortunately, after that press release, not much has been heard about this study, and the paper was utterly rejected by the scientific community. So, still no proof of Bigfoot. And his answer to John, Tom Powell, ended his conclusion by saying,
How tragic, yet how predictable it is that the government denies the public access to knowledge of a living human relative. An anthropological bombshell in one of the planet's most remarkable beings.
Interestingly, the government has at least once publicly investigated Bigfoot. In 1976, 4 years before the Mount St. Helens disaster, Peter Brine, former director of the Bigfoot Information Center and Exhibition of Oregon, convinced the Federal Bureau to analyze new materials he believed confirmed these creatures exist. He cited 15 hairs attached to a tiny piece of skin as the most promising discovery Bigfoot researchers have had in years. Peter wrote to the FBI,
"Please understand that our research here is serious, that this is a serious question that needs answering."
And an answer he got Peter received a letter from J. Cochran Jr., Assistant Director of the agency's Scientific and Technical Services Division. Letter read,
The FBI laboratory conducts investigations primarily of physical evidence for law enforcement agencies in connection with criminal investigations. Occasionally, on a case-by-case basis, in the interest of research and scientific inquiry, we make exceptions to this policy. With this understanding, we will examine the hairs and tissue mentioned in your letter.
Jay still noted that their decision to aid in the investigation did not represent a change in Bureau policy. Nevertheless, the FBI is interested in research and legitimate scientific inquiry. Excited that his research was taken seriously, Peter sent the hair and tissue samples to the FBI. However, the excitement quickly turned to disappointment as the FBI lab concluded that the materials were of the deer family origin. The samples were sent back to Peter, and Bigfoot's existence remained a mystery.
At the command posts, it was a frustrating day. Rescue helicopters couldn't fly because Mount St. Helens was shrouded in dense rain clouds. Scores are still sent to the volcano, safe but anxious to be airlifted out. The rain and the runoff from the melting snow on the hot mountain is now bringing some rivers towards flood stage again. But geologists today were forecasting a quiet period ahead for the mountain.
We're hopeful at this point that the stresses that have been building up have been released and that we're at least in for a period of regrouping without any particular danger at the moment.
The Agriculture Department says it's too early to tell about the damage Mount St. Helens will do to crops and livestock, but just about any place in the area, life has changed dramatically since Sunday.
3 days after Mount St. Helens blew her top, smothering this central Washington community under 5 inches of volcanic ash. It looks like the aftermath of a brutal winter storm. But it's mid-May, and the dust is much harder to remove than snow. Graders, snowplows were all pressed into service. Despite their unusual dilemma, residents manning shovels and brooms seem to be in good spirits.
Haven't seen anything like it ever.
I don't know. I tell you, I never want to see it again.
The volcanic dust storm hit suddenly last Sunday afternoon. 1 minute it was sunny and bright. The next minute it looked like night. Ash falling everywhere.
Well, the community did a great job. We had about 2,000 people stranded. They took them in their home, their churches, the schools full. We fed them good, no problem with food and medicine.
And some of those who were stranded here feel the same way. They couldn't wait to leave.
Incredible. I couldn't believe it. It was scary. You know, you couldn't see in front of you, and you started breathing the stuff, and of course had no idea whether or not it was poison or harmful.
In this convoy are some of the 2,000 people who have been stranded here since Sunday. Law enforcement officials have decided it is safe for groups of travelers to go. Everyone is leaving Ritzville in a cloud of dust.
Briefcase, and I don't know what all's in it, but evidently that was some precious cargo. But from there, the weather was down, but it was quite important that we got the president up there so that later the federal monies that were going to be needed for the cleanup and all of the other things involved. So we went on up, and we were fortunate enough to get underneath the weather, and we got him all the way up just to the vicinity of Spirit Lake, and we got into a snowstorm, and
snowstorm in May.
In May, yeah, the 22nd of May. Snowing like crazy right up there, and that's only about 3,000 feet there. Actually, we're in the Toutle Valley.
Mm-hmm.
But the president got a good look at it because that whole area that had been beautiful virgin forest prior to this, because I had flown up there several times, was like a moonscape. And as a matter of fact, I think he described it like that. And I think that got a good hit, gave him a good feel for just what kind of devastation had taken place. And
as we've discussed before, the government has many reasons to hide the truth from us. So even if the test proved that the hairs belong to an unknown species, in this case Bigfoot, would the FBI have released that conclusion? Perhaps they were just throwing us off the scent. But if the government is purposefully keeping the truth of Bigfoot from us, how much longer would they be able to do so? It's true that for decades, nobody has been able to fully prove these creatures exist, but many people are determined to do so. Peter Bryan sent those 15 hairs to the FBI over 45 years ago, and to this day, he has kept searching for Bigfoot. The government can keep secrets from us, but they cannot keep us from looking for answers ourselves. And maybe one day, someone will finally solve the mystery of Bigfoot.